up, everyone? Welcome to episode 4 of the United Asia podcast. My name is Riz. Our interview this time around is quite a lengthy one. It's a fun one. It's not as emotional of a roller coaster as the past few. So because it's such a long interview, we're just going to hop right into the news. So here we go. We're going to start our news with news from hardcore bands in Thailand. So we got 2 heavy hitters that are about to release some cool things. We've got Whispers, an amazing metallic hardcore band from Thailand. We're about to drop their debut EP on UK label The Coming Strife. The EP apparently is already recorded. The artwork's all done. It'll be out in November, so look out for that. The next band we've got up is our friends Born From Pain, long-running, legendary Thai hardcore band. Born From Pain's about to drop a brand new music video. They just finished shooting it, and it comes out September 18. In Japan, Japan's got a lot going on all the time. There's always tons and tons of news from Japan. But a band that really caught our attention is a speed metal band called Hell Freezes Over, who just dropped their debut album called Hellraiser. Dude, this band is insane. It's so intense. When they dropped their first music video from this album, I was just wowed. I couldn't believe what I was watching, what I was listening to. It was just beyond quality. Please check out this band. The the album is already up on streaming platforms everywhere. It's called Hell Freezes Over. Indonesian hardcore band Eyes of War features our friends in Under 18. They're apparently working on a new EP. Look out for that. In Korea, we've got 2 awesome punk bands who've been up to some crazy things. One punk band, Gumiho. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's in Korean. I don't know. Someone tell me if I'm wrong. You can write it in the comment section below. They're apparently in the studio recording their new EP. There's photos of them on their Instagram and stuff, so look out for that. Another punk band called Ultra Lazy just dropped their debut EP out of nowhere, and with zero promotion, no marketing, no managers, nothing. They just dropped their EP and they're like, hey, we're Ultra Lazy, check us out if you want. And it's awesome. Go listen to the EP. It's such a great release. We had to put it up on our site. We had to put it on our Instagram. It's so good. And the coolest thing about it is that it just dropped out of nowhere. It's like a little magical gift to the world. Go check them out, called Ultra Lazy. Lastly, in Singapore, we've got our great friends in stoner rock band Marijana. So they've already just released 2 phenomenal records that have just taken the world by storm. But they've also just done something pretty spectacular. They literally just rented out a movie theater, put the band inside the movie theater, and played the entire album start to finish and recorded it all. So they're saying that the first clip of that session comes out in September, and then the full live video will come out in November. So look out for that. And on that note, off to the interview. Today we have a really cool friend of mine, a personal friend that I've known for about 20 plus years from right here in Hong Kong, my friend Yan, who plays in punk bands like Hard Candy and most recently in an amazing band called the After Party. So much fun watching videos, checking out their music, their live show. They're just having a lot of fun. The reason why I picked her is because she's from right here, right from Hong Kong. And it's really cool for people outside of Hong Kong and the rest of Asia, and maybe for people who live here, to kind of get a little bit of a background of the 90s scene into what we have today. And you kind of get a little bit of a background of what punk rock was like, has been like for Hong Kong through her perspective. As someone that was young when it started, as someone who decided to pick up the guitar, as someone who decided to put on a band, put on shows, her journey through this to be able to find some place that she calls home. And in the interview, she actually calls a place where she finds her tribe. Her group of people who have like-minded spirits and attitude and passion for this type of music and this lifestyle. Enjoy the interview. Welcome, everybody, to our 4th episode of the United Asia podcast. Today, we're taking it local. We're bringing the podcast back home to Hong Kong. Today, it is my honor to have my amazing friend Yan that I've known for almost 20 years, who plays in punk rock bands like Hard Candy in Hong Kong. And then most recently, she's playing in a punk band called After Party. How are you doing, Yan?
Oh, good. Yes. Thanks for having me. It's such an honor.
Oh, you're so sweet. So Yan, I know that you've seen a couple episodes of the podcast, and what we're really going to do is just try to get into the history of our guests so that people outside of the region that person lives in has a little bit of an understanding of their background. Like, how did they get into music, and then how did they find their way into punk rock and hardcore? So in your case, it's a very interesting story because you grew up in Hong Kong. You went to a lot of the local schools. And for a lot of people who are listening, they don't even understand what I mean by local schools and international schools. Those are two very different things in Hong Kong. So local schools are where a lot of the local population, a lot of the Chinese-speaking population will go. International schools are where a lot of the expats kids will go. So there's two very different worlds in Hong Kong. So for you, Yan, can you kind of just paint us a picture of what school life was like for you?
So yeah, besides I was in a local school, I was also living in Tuen Mun, so a very, very local residential area in Hong Kong. I think growing up, I was very lucky that because I have a sister 10 years older than me. She doesn't really listen to rock music, but she buy the loud compilation CDs, and she likes to watch movies. So she likes to buy a soundtrack CD. So it was really good because sometimes in the soundtrack, you find some really good alternative music. So I think the first time it's really inspired me to listen to alternative music, I also would say is because of my sister. So even though my sister is like a big fan of George Michael and Madonna, all these things, but you know, it's not that bad compared to the Canton pop music. You know what am I talking about?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
No, at least they are true artists. It's just not really rock and roll. But I think I got into more heavy stuff because of the loud compilation CDs. Normally they have some pop songs and then some also bands from the UK or from the US. So I think first time I got into loud music, I think it's maybe I was 9 years old, 10 years old. Yeah.
What year?
1994.
Oh, 94. So 94, because of that loud compilation you're talking about, you first got into heavy music?
Yes, yeah. But well, I don't really know about like the style. I just think it's a little bit crazy. And I always, like growing up, I always watch a lot of American movies. So for me to see people living like this, so you know, like so free, you know, in the 90s, you know, American movies are the best, you know, the teenagers are just so free, so they can speak up, and all these things are just totally opposite of what local kids in Hong Kong should do. You know, in the local Hong Kong school system, you're supposed to be quiet. You cannot do anything that, like, you cannot challenge the teacher or even like your classmates. You're just there to sit down and receive information. So for me, it was like a turning point of my life when I watched all these movies and then all the soundtrack, and then the compilation CDs, and then I think from there I got into rock music. But at that time, I think it's more rock music from you know, more like band from the UK, like Blur.
Oh.
Well, they were quite loud actually,
Yeah.
for Hong Kong standard.
Absolutely.
You know.
Can you tell me when you're talking about the American movies, what American movies was it? I'm assuming you're talking about like coming of age movies, like where the teenagers are kind of rebelling against their parents or going against school, like those types of movies.
Yeah. Also, the girls are so beautiful, like Clueless and
Clueless. Oh my gosh, I thought you were talking about like Breakfast Club.
But you know, the women I saw there, they are so much more mature. Also, these are the difference between Western women and Western girls and local, like, Asian girls. You know, we don't really grow up until we are 23, 24. You know, seriously, right? Like, you work in an international school, you know what am I talking about? When you see a 16 years old, they are like really mature, you know. Yeah. So I think I was really moved by that. Yeah. Overall, it's just the freedom they have, you know. Just they are they embrace individualism, you know. Yeah. Just very different.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, you said it so nicely because in local Hong Kong education, you're right. Everyone must follow the rules. You can't speak up. You just kind of have to nod your head. Even if you don't understand something, you can't ask. You don't have the environment in the school that you can ask a question or challenge the teacher. So for you, when you were seeing those movies where the younger child was speaking up for themselves, and like you said, that whole individualism, like they were actually nurturing it, fostering it, recommending and suggesting you to be individual. It's such a like an explosion to you, right?
No, even like Home Alone. I mean, it's Home Alone is it's a little kid, but you know, like they actually embrace your own character, you know.
Yeah. That's such a great way to put that. The independent spirit, right? Whereas Hong Kong is very much, of course, it's an Asian city, right? So it's very much collective. Everything happens in a collective, whereas in America, it's very individualistic. Wow. You're blowing my mind, Yan. I wasn't thinking that we were going to have this conversation. This is great. But what were the bands on that Loud compilation? Was it already Blur or was it some other types of bands?
I think it was Blur, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Blur at that time. And then I think I got into Smashing Pumpkins because of Batman.
Batman?
No, they did a soundtrack. So I just want to say I actually got into a lot of Western music because of movies, because my family likes movies a lot. My sister likes movies a lot.
Now, can you tell me if you're already, because you have a sister that's 10 years older than you, she's already teaching you and feeding you all this great stuff. But when you're going to school with people your age, do they understand you? Did they understand what you were talking about? Did they understand what kind of bands and music you're listening to? Or was it an awkward situation for you in school?
You know, it's really the different perception. My sister didn't really educate me. My sister just played the movie, but I pick up the music. So my sister actually not really a big fan of all the music I listen to, but a little bit more open-minded than usual, like a general population here. But yeah,
right.
not as heavy as I do. But yes, of course, I still remember when I went to school, I had a Marilyn Manson pin on my backpack. And I got a detention just because of this, because the teacher think, oh, I'm wearing something not suitable for carrying to the school. You know how he looks like, right? In the
Marilyn Manson pin? Because of a pin, you got detention?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And as I say, I follow so much about the American culture, so I also put a lot of badge on my backpack. And then I remember my classmates say, "Oh, is it because your bed doesn't have a brand, so you put all this trash?" I just how isolated I am. This is how lonely I am. I'm surrounded with people who think like this.
Right. Like you're saying, like they have a different mentality that they actually asked you. Is it because it doesn't have a cool brand, so you're covering it up with badges? Oh my God.
Yeah, with all my badges, the Fana and all this. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's so crazy. Like it's such a different school, like the local school and the international school. Like my daughter goes to the international school. She's got badges, pins. She draws all over her backpack. It's such a different world. It's all about freedom and expression.
Yeah, I think also now maybe it's much better with internet.
I see.
People understand a little bit more about other culture. I mean, in the 90s, it was really difficult. Like the only way I can find music is from MCB, the magazine.
Yes,
Yeah.
What a great
and
magazine.
I also go to a mall called the Sino Center, the dance there. Yeah. And then people, the people in there, they like to recommend you, they feel like a guru, Yeah, if you like this band, they will tell you, oh, you should check out the other bands,
Right. So it's cool that you at least had that opportunity to learn about more bands from places like in Mongkok, in Sino Center, or MCB. But let's go back to the school thing, because I really find it fascinating what your friends would say to you. And you also said, you felt very lonely in school. And that's actually a difficult feeling that many people who get into punk rock and hardcore feel. No matter where in the world, there's this thing in their heart where they're like, why am I so different from everybody else? Why can't I like Andy Lau like you like Andy Lau? Like, why do I like this type of music that people don't seem to like? So how did you deal with that when you were growing up?
Yeah, I think, but I felt lonely, but I also didn't stop sharing this with my good friends. So some of my good friends actually listen to a little bit more music because I forced them to at the beginning, but they actually like it at the end. Of course, I felt very lonely because just no one really understand, and like when you're a teenager, you just want to share your passion, right? It's like the fan club, you know, but I can't find anybody until I think until I turned almost 17.
17?
Yes, yeah. Until I turned 17, I start to use, I think it was MySpace already. Yeah, 18 or 17, MySpace already. Then suddenly I'm open up to all these amazing girls in Taiwan, in Philippines, or in anywhere that they like the same kind of music. So back to like when so I actually didn't really like punk music when I listened to the male-funded punk band, to be honest.
Interesting.
The only thing that really appealed to me is the strong women band.
So you're saying that even when you were listening to punk bands, you didn't gravitate towards the male ones like Green Day or Offspring or whatever. You chose a strong female role model.
Yeah.
Wow.
I you know, when I was 14, actually, because like my sister were studying in Canada, so she actually told me a band that her friend liked is called Bad Religion. I didn't like Bad Religion at that time.
Oh, you didn't like Bad Religion?
I like loud music, but it didn't appeal to me. So I didn't really like, oh wow, punk rock, you know. So like I really got into it at that time. No, not really. But I think I got really into it around the same year when I discovered all the Riot Grrl band, you know, Bikini Kill, Sleater Kinney, Team Trash, and whole, yeah, all the female, even like Alanis Morissette. Yeah, all the strong women lead musician. Then
that's amazing. So how did you go from Blur to getting into and learning more about Bikini Kill, Sleater Kinney? Like, how did you get into like, who introduced the Riot Grrl bands to you?
Well, I did my homework a lot. So, so I think it's, I don't really remember how exactly, but I remember it's like maybe I was in HMV, like on the weekend, you know, like you spend your time in HMV looking for bands to listen. And then I think I picked up Lefana, and I found out, oh, Lefana was dating Courtney Love, Ho, and then I start to find all this Sonic Youth and Bikini Kill, and yeah, all this cool female musician. I think I just found it from there. You know when you like one artist and then you just find the similar artists, right?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm asking about the Bikini Kill, Sleater Kinney stuff is because you're saying from 14 to almost 17, you didn't have like a circle of friends who would show you, hey, I just found a new band, or another person would be like, hey, I found a new band. You didn't have that. So it's just interesting to see your transition from like Blur, you know, like more of the mainstream overseas bands. And then you found these really underground, meaningful, like angst-filled punk bands like Bikini Kill. So you're saying that you went into HMV, you probably bought the Nirvana, and did you mean you look at like the thank you section like we all used to do?
Not really like that. Not really like that. But I think it's just maybe on MCB or some kind of magazines. Yeah. And then I saw like he's dating a woman who looked a little bit like you know, I was always very into like a very independent woman image. You know, like what I say, like just really confident, independent woman. When I was young, so when I saw women like this, so I'm curious how they sound like, you know. So, and then Sonic Youth, of course, with Kim Gordon.
But that's so cool. It's so cool to hear your way of getting into this music, because my way of getting into it is very different from your experience. But we live in the same city. It's so interesting. We live in the same city. We had our own ways of finding this type of music. Now, when you finally got into bands like Bikini Kill, and I hear you. I hear what you're saying, that you were already very interested in very confident women.
Yes, not just music. Yeah.
Yeah, not just music, you're saying. But can you tell me, like, what is it about that really appealed to you? Like, why did you look for those confident, strong women characters?
I think also like growing up in a Chinese family, I think female are always well, not anymore now, but I'm talking about 20 years ago. a lot of stereotype, you know. They want your hair to be like this. A pretty girl has to be like this, you know. So I never really fit in those boxes. So I kind of found like, oh, maybe I'm good for something else. Yeah. Also, like my father was quite traditional, so he would prefer to have a boy, I think. But yeah, but he had 3 daughters at the end.
Oh God.
Yeah. But you know, like just Chinese parents, you know, so they always favor a little bit more to have sons rather than daughters, and I feel it's not right. I think, yeah, it's just in general, I don't really fit into the popular girls category when I was younger, so I was looking for a way to find my tribe.
Yeah. What a great way to say it. You're right. Tribe. That is the word, right? That's the word that we're all looking for when we're teenagers, when our minds don't make sense. But especially for in your case and my case, I also grew up in a very traditional Pakistani family in Hong Kong, but I also didn't think like them. Like my dad wanted me to be a banker or a doctor. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about money. I don't care about money. Like, and all I wanted to do was be able to express myself. So like you're saying, I think your environment that you grew up in nurtured that feeling. You're like, no, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to find a way to be myself. And that's why you latched onto these strong women role models. You're like, yeah, like this person doesn't care about how society looks at her. This person definitely doesn't care how her family looks at her. She's just happy with who she is. That's what it sounds like for you, right?
Yes, exactly. Also, I was more into sport when I was younger. So I don't really care about like the girly stuff, you know. I was really a big fan of basketball and football, you know.
Wow.
So always a little bit boyish anyway. So yeah.
That's so funny. Now, in my case, at least, I mean, I know I'm a little bit older than you. In my case, I didn't see what my favorite bands looked like until much later. So in your case, when you first heard of Bikini Kill, L7, or Sleater Kinney, have you already seen a picture of them? Was it already on the CD? Like, how did you know what they looked like?
Yes, yeah. I think, yeah, I have to say I actually got into them because I liked how they look like.
Just
messy hair, weird way of dressing, you know, like a mesh stuff, but just the confidence really get me, you know, the confidence of all these women just really get me.
That's so cool. Okay, so if you're talking about that era of Yan, right? That era, what would you say are the bands that really inspired and influenced you? If you're thinking back to when you first got into all of this.
I think it would be, to be honest, Ho.
Yeah, nice. Tell me why Ho?
I think it's the way she sings, just you know, I always like music, but I never really got training. So for me, also, well, I think it's also because of this. So I never really be able to learn piano, you know, like a lot of kids can do here. So I'm never trained. So I was thinking, oh, what can I do with simple stuff? I don't really have an amazing voice like for like all the R&B, you know, it was so popular at that time, right? I also like them, but I would never be able to sing like this. So when I listen to Ho, it's pretty simple music, but so powerful with a screaming vocals and very grungy guitar. So I think that's actually the album that made me think that maybe it's okay for me to play music, you know?
Wow, that's so cool to hear that was the album that got you. You're like, oh, maybe I can do it too. So it's again that feeling where, like, when I grew up, I was listening to like Iron Maiden and all these bands, like you're saying, where the bands are so technical. And I'm like, I'm never going to be able to play this. But I mean, I still started playing guitar. But you're right. There's something about punk rock that makes everyone feel like, oh, if this band can do that, I can do that. I can scream like that. So it's so powerful that you are so lucky that at your age, you already had a bunch of bands that represented women. And then you could see yourself in that position. That's so cool. Because imagine like if you were maybe 10 years older and if you're getting to this music in the 80s.
Yeah, I would be.
There was no Hole or Bikini Kill, right?
Do any of that shit, Well, probably I will really train up and learn guitar, maybe,
But it's so like, I mean, I think what you just proved is how important representation is, right? Representation is so important. It's because you saw a woman playing guitar and, you know, just a free, confident woman. And you're like, oh, I can do that. I mean, that's why it's so important that we're still doing that and being very careful about what we're representing. That's why, like, I don't know if people have noticed, but in the podcast, I'm trying to go male, female, and eventually, you know, try to find, you know, people who are trans or bi or whatever, so that I'm being very intentional, letting the world know that even in Asia, we have people from all walks of life, man. Music is music, man. It doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is. If you like boys, you like girls, whatever you are, music is music. And that's why it's so important that we continue to represent.
I think the cool thing also, being like, even if I'm not playing music, even if you just like music, it's connect people from different area, you know? Like I would not be able to meet you, you know, for example, like we went to different school, we are in totally different circle of friends. So it's just because of music and we like the same passion, you know? Yeah.
Totally. It's like you said, it's like, it's a tribe. We finally found our tribe. And like, I've met you 20 years ago. So, and we're still friends. Like we're still part of that tribe, even though our paths don't cross often, even though we live in a small city, but we don't, you know, we don't see each other often. But everything you're saying right now is so like, it's so heartwarming to me. I'm like, yeah, me too. I had the same problem. No one talked to me. You know,
so
like, it's so interesting.
I don't really remember how old I am, but I must be like 14 when I first saw you.
Saw me.
Seriously. And you would be like, seriously, you would be the band that make me think, oh, there are music in Hong Kong. You know, serious.
Wow.
No, but I will not be able to go to, because if you remember in late 90s, still there are many live house, you know. It's, if you want to see a live band, you have to go to a bar, but I was still a teenager, so I would not be able to go into a bar to see a live band, even just a show cover band. But so you came to Tin Moon, I don't know why. You came to Tin Moon, so Google this shit. Tin Moon is like a suburban in Hong Kong, very far away from the city. So you were playing in a hotel, actually.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Not the only one. I was there with two of my other friends that we're still in touch. I think it was a very special moment for us. We were 14, 15 years old. We never saw something like this. You came into the village of Hong Kong, and
that's so funny.
You make me think, oh, and you're actually the first band I saw in Hong Kong.
Wow. So you're saying King Lai Chi was the very first band you saw in Hong Kong?
The first.
Yeah.
First band ever is you guys, really.
Wow, that's amazing, man. You're almost going to give me a little tear in my eye. That's nice to hear. Thank you for sharing that story. I want to say,
like, for all the bands, even till now, don't like always play somewhere in the village, you know. I think it's actually better, you know. You know, when you're playing in the city, people are so spoiled. Like with all my touring, always the best show is to go to somewhere a little bit smaller.
Okay, let's go back to Hole and that inspiration. So Hole, by Hole, did you already have a guitar at home, or did you listen to Hole and you go, Dad, I want to go buy a guitar? Like, how did that happen at your house?
I think, so yeah, it's really punk rock already. I actually saved up my money by skipping lunch to buy a guitar.
Oh my God, that's so funny. You mean in high school you were skipping lunch?
I was
Form
2, I think. Yeah. So 14 years old.
And how many days did you skip lunch?
I don't know. Well, I didn't really skip lunch. It's like I just don't buy lunch and I eat the leftover from my friends. Yeah. So I got my guitar and I found out about Hole. But you know, at the beginning when I played the guitar, I wasn't thinking that I would start a band. I just wanted to imitate my idol. You know, I just want to say. You know, like I actually terrible at skateboarding, but I had a skateboard too. But I just want to imitate people that I like, you know. Yeah. But I didn't think of really writing my own music or starting a band until I reached Hole, I think.
Wow. Now, what was the guitar that you bought?
Ibanez, I think. Ibanez.
You bought an Ibanez? How much money did you save up?
I think it was around 2000.
Yeah. Yes, 2,000 Hong Kong dollars. Yes, about 300 US. So you must not have eaten lunch for like maybe
No,
2
but
years.
we've also like a Chinese pocket, New Year pocket money.
Yeah. The red packet, right? That's so funny. So then I'm sorry, not Corn, Whole opened that world up to you. And Whole was the first time that you decided to start writing your own music? Wow. And did you already have a band then, or are you still at home by yourself?
Myself. Yeah, I didn't have a band until,
wow.
I think until 16. Then I tried something, with some friends. But it was just a summer project because I actually started to go to Canada for 3 years. I wanted so from 15 to 18 I was in Canada.
Okay, now that makes a lot more sense. So because once you go to Canada, especially when you go, it happened to me when I left Hong Kong, went to USA for college, then everything opened up for me. And then I was like, oh, this is hardcore. This is punk rock. It's more than the music. There is so much more that happens in punk rock, so much more that happens in hardcore. So let's transition. So you're in Canada as a 15-year-old. What happened? What was your time in Canada like?
Well, I was in a very small town. I was in Edmonton, so not much happening. Unfortunately, it was also like, I think the last year I was there, it was the year of Nickelback. They had fun there, so it was a big deal. So every day is Nickelback. But of course, I opened up a lot because over there I also do the same thing. I go to the bookstore, I check out the magazines. So there will be more rock and roll magazines that I can look at in the bookstore. Also in HM3, they will have more station that you can try out the music. Radio station also open up, but honestly speaking, I didn't find too much punk rock or hardcore music there too.
You didn't go watch shows?
Oh, not really. Yeah, I was 15 years old, so I cannot really go out that much. To go to see a show in a bar is, very strict, right? In America and Canada, But I think during that time, then I actually opened up to more different music genres, not just punk rock. Yeah, more other stuff too.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so you expanded your horizon of music then while you were in Canada.
Mellow stuff when I was in Canada. Also, I think it's the weather and a lot of other things. I also like a lot of other music like Elliott Smith and or even like some post-rock band at that time, like Sigur Rós. It was popular at that time. So I think I opened up more to different kind of music. But I think in Canada, I have more time to play music. So I was still writing songs. So my style is still very punk rock because I actually never really learned guitar. So I was also a very lazy guitar player that I'm not nerdy enough to practice my solo.
And then when you came back, because I know you from Hard Candy. So when was it that you came back to Hong Kong and you found your tribe again beyond your school? Because the people you were playing with were not people you went to school with. So how did Hard Candy come around?
I think it's 18, 19 years old. I'm in Hong Kong. I went to university in here. So it's just, it's actually, so bass player is from my university. So we were classmates. And then the drummer, I think we just, there is a forum called Band something. You remember? It's a green color.
Oh, what was it called? Band something forum? Oh, I forgot. Like Band Sound Forum? I know what you're talking about.
The background is green color. A lot of people found bandmates there. So I found a very good, amazing female drummer, Renee. And then just, when you play this kind of music, drummer is very important,
Very important. Thank you for making sure everyone understands that. People always like, especially metalheads, are always like, oh, punk is so easy. Like, dude, you need to listen carefully. The drummer is the backbone of the band. Watch the drummer.
Yeah, definitely. And then it's the guitar and bass might sound a little bit more simple, but then you actually take more energy to build up your charisma. Then your singing style and how you engage with the audience.
So this is, I'm assuming you mean Eric was the bass player, or was it somebody else?
Yeah.
Eric, okay. That was, now you just said like those three people that you just named, like in my head, that was like the classic Yan lineup of any band that you played in. I was just like, I will never forget those three people. Every time you guys played at the warehouse, you know, and it's just like, when you guys got on stage, you would always get on stage and just have so much fun. Like Eric was like he was like a madman on stage, right? Like, I mean, he's like a Mr. Post-rock, indie rock guy now, but back then he was like, bass was in the air. He was like, didn't he like take his shirt off and stuff? Like he would just be crazy, right?
You know, actually he didn't really like punk rock. I kind of just, so he's always into indie rock. Like he's a very good musician. He was always into indie rock. I think it's just because I was in need for a bass player. So.
So if you're talking about Hard Candy with those three people, would you say that that's your first real band then?
Yes, that was my first real band.
So then after you started creating music with these three people, great lineup, when did in your brain decide, hey, let's start playing shows?
I was very determined already. I think yes, when I started the band, I think I already wanted to play shows. Yeah. So
that's so cool. So how soon after you started the band did you play your first show?
Half a year. And
wow.
I think the first one is in one of the Ivy school in Kwun Tong. And that's how I met with 218, if you remember, the other punk band.
Yes, 218. Yeah. So how cool that your first punk band that you started, first serious one, there was already another punk band in the city. That's a cool feeling,
it was also their first time. So it was so cool. So we were always hanging out together, and then we start to know all these bands that you know, like Attention to Kids, Music 7, also my good friends, Hard Pack, and you guys, and the Mock Empire, 5 disciplines. Yeah.
Yes, Mogging Pie, 5 disciplines. Yeah. That is, I mean, you're talking about a very good era of Hong Kong. I mean, like you said earlier, we didn't have many live houses. We did not have many venues. We only had a few places, and shows were not as frequent as now. Now there's shows almost every day. There's 10 shows on a Saturday. Like everyone is split up. But back then, everyone would go to that one show, and they would have all these bands, different style of punk, different style of hardcore. It was such a cool time.
Yeah, I think also maybe the differences between now, it would be you really miss out if you don't go to the show. Now with social media, if you don't go to the show, you can still see what is happening there. But back at the time, if you miss that event, you miss out the party, you know.
Yeah, people will share the photos. You're like, man, I missed going. I should have gone to that show. I went out to dinner with my mom instead. Darn. Yeah, I remember that feeling. So now, if we're talking about venues, and I know you were saying that with Hard Candy, eventually you started to invite other bands to come to Hong Kong, but you were intentional about inviting girl bands with girl members in it. Do you remember why you decided to do that?
I think like I say, actually, like I think when I started to use MySpace, I think I found my tribe, you know, like so I found all this. Well, honestly speaking, you don't really find a lot of guys who like Riot Grrl. Like in Hong Kong, I think I found a few, really a few, like 1 or 2. I'm still friends with those people, but really, I think people who are interested in girl bands and White Grrl are all normally female. So I actually, on MySpace, I met up with BB Bomb and Shaki from Taiwan. So when they were interested to come over to Hong Kong, so I helped them to organize a show in warehouse. I helped them to find somewhere to live. So I think it's because back in the days, it's more difficult because you cannot really link up with people that easily with Facebook nowadays. So you really have to rely on a local person to co-organize this kind of things.
But it's very interesting because what you did was very punk rock, right? You had completely invited and welcomed the whole DIY aspect of punk rock, because punk rock is very DIY. We don't wait for a label to sign your band. We don't wait for you to find a manager. You go do it. If you want to play a show, organize it. If you want to release music, go record it and release it. But can I ask, how did you learn about that though? How did you learn about the punk rock culture, the mentality? It's more than the music. How did you learn about all of that stuff?
I think maybe when I start playing hard candy, then I start to pay attention what other bands are doing. So I think I learned from them. And at that time, I also met someone in the Philippines. She's not from a band, but she make scenes. So which is very DIY. And I think I also got inspired to make my own, I would draw my lyrics and then I photocopy it in colorful paper. And then I also distribute in my show, you know, because I want people to understand what we were singing, you know. So yeah, I think I just copy from what the other people do. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because you have this whole DIY. You have a very passionate person. Like you said, you were very committed and determined that you're going to play your shows, and you're determined that I'm going to release my music. I'm just going to get it out there. Not a lot of people think that way anymore, I think. I think this whole punk rock, especially, I'm just talking about Hong Kong, right? I don't know about the cultures all over the world, but I think in Hong Kong, that punk rock spirit is kind of gone.
Yes, I believe so too, yeah. And I also think people complain a little bit too much, you know, like I think if you are passionate about something, you make it happen, you know, like I know it's very difficult with the restriction of venues and there's no major record label. But, you know, when I first pick up my guitar and start a band, I wasn't thinking that I would give up my full-time job and be it's just my hobby, you know. It's right. It's like people who like to do tennis, who like to do yoga, you know. It's my hobby. So it's not because that there's low opportunities or low investment, then you stop doing it. Yeah. Sometimes I don't really understand why people will give up doing music, because for me it's just a hobby, you know.
Right. So with when you started organizing shows for those bands coming to Hong Kong, I mean, you've been involved, I would say, for almost as much as me. Like for about 20 years, we've been doing this whole punk rock, hardcore thing in Hong Kong. It's been 20 years. I mean, it's 2020 now, and I started in 1999. And actually, I'll be very honest, I don't think much has changed in terms of punk rock and hardcore in Hong Kong. It really hasn't grown. I will admit there was a time where it was like, oh yes, we got it. We got a Hong Kong hardcore scene. We have a punk rock scene. And then it died and it's never come back. Like, have you thought about, like, what is it about Hong Kong that they don't, punk rock is not as attractive to people in Hong Kong? What do you think?
I don't really think it's just punk rock. I think in general, indie rock, like original rock music in Hong Kong doesn't really pick up. I think the first thing is the lack of venues, because it's actually a building ground for all these people. For people to go there as audience, for people to think about starting a band, you need a place to start this. And like, let's be honest, like for punk and hardcore music, it's so much more powerful when you see it in live. Yeah, really. Like, I mean, I like, honestly speaking, normally at home, I don't really listening to very loud music, because it's a live thing, you know. I love going to see the live because it's so much more powerful. But you can't really get that energy out when you're listening on Spotify, you know. Just saying. So I think the lack of venue is it's a very big thing in Hong Kong. If there's no venues, then you cannot really build up the community.
That's a very good point, because I mean, I remember Warehouse felt like that place. It was more than just a venue, right? It was more than a venue. It really was, for me, my experience and my recollection of Warehouse, it felt like a cultural home for us. We all lived all over Hong Kong. You lived in Tuen Mun at the time. I lived in Tim Na Tau at the time. And my band members lived in like Kwai Chung or whatever. And we would all, these crazy punk kids in Hong Kong would always show up every weekend to Aberdeen on top of a really steep hill. Yeah. And then we would all come together and say, hey, what's up? Hey, Yan, how are you doing? Like in that cultural base is gone. Like there is no base for us. There's no cultural home for where like-minded punk rock people, hardcore people can come together.
The number one factor why it doesn't really pick up. It's not just punk rock.
Right.
I think in general, original, unsigned bands are struggling so much in Hong Kong. It's just a lack of venues for people to share, for people to exchange, you know, for people to build up a community.
Right. Can I ask then, is that why? Because I've seen your trajectory. I've seen what you've done in your life in terms of playing punk rock and making sure you're connected. Is it maybe because in Hong Kong, it's so much harder to find really like a home base or a fan base or supporters? Is that why you started to reach outside of Hong Kong and start traveling to other places? Because that's what I did. At some point, I'm like, I'm not feeling satisfied playing in Hong Kong, or it's not fulfilling to play in Hong Kong. Hey, what's going on in Malaysia? Hey, what's going on in Singapore? Let's go there. But not many people do that. How did you find out about going to the Philippines and stuff like that?
When you try once, you just get addicted to it. It's just there are more venues, there are more people, more scenes happening in the Philippines, in Taiwan. Even I would say when I played in China, I was also pretty impressed. You know, like Wuhan, they have good scenes also with punk rock and hardcore. So why did I do it for the first time? I think I just wanted to check it out. But then I think after the first time I went to Philippines, I just really got addicted to touring. Yeah, just I was thinking it's the same thing about finding your people, you know. Over there, I found the people I really like, just friendly people, happy people. They don't really like, I met up with a band, very popular band in the Philippines, mainstream popular band called Sandwich. So such nice people. Like they don't even act like they're rock star at all. They are just really friendly, and they and even until now, like when I saw a band, they will ask me, "Oh, is that band good?" You know, like they are still looking for new band to support. Yeah, the people are just so I think it's not just Philippines. I think everywhere in the world are like this, but they are not pretentious. They are as I say, they just like to play music. Even they are so big or they are so small, they don't care. If they find you interesting, if they know that you're doing music, they will try to help you. I think it's just the community is much stronger and much bigger than Hong Kong. So I think I felt more satisfied when I go out of Hong Kong and do tour. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what I felt when I went to Malaysia the first time, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines. Literally my mind was blown. I would go to a show and hundreds of people would show up. I'm like, how come there's so many people? They're like, oh, this is a small show. I'm like, this is a small show? Like my mind was blown. And exactly like you said, especially in places like Philippines, the humility, they're so humble.
So warm.
Like you're saying, like Sandwich. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, all these great bands. And I'm like, I've heard of your band and you're so nice. And they're like, yeah, man, I've heard King Lai Chi. Great job, man. I'm going to come watch you guys play. You're right. I mean, it's just such a nice feeling when you go outside of Hong Kong and feel so welcomed. And then, like you also said, when you go to a place like Philippines or Malaysia or these places that have had a punk rock scene for decades, man, like 30 years, some of these places, when you go there, you're like, oh, this is what a healthy scene is supposed to feel like. You go to the show, there's a merch table, there's a distro.
So much bigger,
right?
the merch table. Like
so much bigger.
When we were in warehouse, it's just a tiny little table, you know, 5 bands fit all the merch on it. But yeah, as you say, like when I play in Malaysia, they say it's just a small show, but it was like 10 times the warehouse we had in Hong Kong. It's a big deal, you know, but they were saying, oh, it's just a small show, you know.
Yeah. So, but that makes me wonder though, like there aren't many people like you and me that travel with their bands outside of Hong Kong. I mean, luckily I had band members in King Lai Chi and Dagger who love traveling. All the guys that I always find.
This is for me, it's the requirement to play music with King. Like you have to like traveling with the band. Yeah.
So so we've talked about your history. We talked about Hard Candy, but that's not the band that you're currently playing in. You're currently playing in After Party. So how did you find these members?
So, well, actually, like it was, I actually stole the members from another band.
Oh, good. As long as you admit it.
So just relationship falling out. So I have to quit my previous band, and I asked the other bandmates if they're interested to play with me. actually, like, so I wasn't sure if they were interested. And I think by the time I almost thought that, oh, maybe I should just play guitar and bass sometime for other people rather than having my own band, because it's a lot of work. But then when the drummer sent me a message saying, oh, I thought we will start a band. And then I kind of say in my heart, oh my God, this is such a good drummer. I cannot miss this, because we were just talking about like how important to have a good drummer in a punk rock band.
Right.
So like here I am having such a good drummer saying to me that maybe we should start a band. I just think it's I have to take this opportunities. So so I started that. For that, I think most of the time I play really more like heavy and angry kind of music. But I guess at that time, I kind of think people going out on a Friday, Saturday, they don't especially want something that heavy. So I just want to do something more funny. So now it's more like a punk band with sarcasm and just being funny, you know.
Yeah, because it does come across really well that it's like a party fun band. Like even your music videos are so funny and they're just so much fun to watch, and you could see that you're just enjoying it. All of you guys in the band are enjoying it. But can I ask, in terms of, because I always ask this question, I forgot to ask you, even in Hard Candy days and then after party days, for me, lyrics are so important. Like, what is the band actually singing about? That's what differentiates hardcore bands, punk rock bands from metal bands, right? And so with Hard Candy and After Party, what are some ideas or things that you feel like you always need to sing about?
Still very female driven, yeah. So I think, think before, the approach in Hard Candy is more like a female perspective of a serious topic, you know. Sometimes it's more like oh, you don't judge how I dress, you know, like this kind of things, more like serious. But now with after party, maybe we will do more like how female think about online dating, for example, like just more funny issues. But I think one thing that's very consistent for my lyrics writing is female's perspective.
That's great. I mean, again, I think it's so powerful that you that representation is out there. I mean, I have an 8-year-old daughter. And so with her, I'm also like very, very intentional with what videos I watch on my computer. You know, it's not always guy bands. I make sure that there's girl bands on my computer. I skateboard, so it's not just guy skateboarders. I also make sure there's female skateboarders. So she's always had this more balanced view where, of course, there's girl skateboarders. Of course, I'm going to skate. I'm a girl, and I saw a girl skateboarder. Or Yan plays guitar in a band. Yeah, I saw her on a computer. Of course, I'll start playing. So it's really cool that you do that with a female perspective, because I feel like, I mean, I've been listening to heavy music for a long time, and I personally, as a male, I'm very bored of reading lyrics written by males. It's always the same thing over. I'm like, okay, how about you shut up for a little bit, and let's pass this microphone to somebody different. Let's get a different voice.
No, but yeah, I also like sometimes when I play in a show, and then if there are female audience came up to me and say it's connect with them, it's actually make me feel so much happier than a guy who say, oh, you guys are great, you know, because I think after all, I just want to it's like when I was young, I want to be connected with different girls and women who are having the same kind of feeling, like you know, in not just Asian culture, I think in everywhere, some of the things you don't really expect female to talk about it, you know, like even for sex, for dating, for even going to the toilet and all this thing, you know, like they don't expect female to talk about this kind of nasty thing, they think. But but come on, we can all do this, you know. So
right.
So yeah,
I mean,
like my approach now, just talk about different things with a female perspective. Yeah.
It's so great. And I do like that you said that really for you, what's most touching is the connecting with other females. And that's great. I mean, but also from a guy's perspective, like when I read lyrics that are about motherhood or, you know, like you're talking about like menstruation and things like that, when I read it in a zine or when I read it in lyrics, my mind is like, I'm like, I had no idea. I had no idea about all of these things. And I feel like my mind grows when I read a different perspective. That's why I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I think there's too many guys playing in bands. Just like too many. Just stop for a little bit. You're not bringing anything new to the music. You're not bringing anything new to the lyrics. My mind is not being enlightened. But when I read lyrics from women or, people who are bi or gay or trans and their experiences, I'm like, oh, so that's what life is like for them. So like, you know, more power to you. Thank you for doing that. And you're still going to do that with After Party, I'm sure,
yes,
right?
Yeah, we are working on we are trying to record by ourselves, but it's a little bit slower, you know, rather than going to a studio. It's always a little bit take much more time when you do it yourself, but we wanted to do it.
Right. So is your plan right now to release an album or what is your plan right now?
Yeah, I don't think we will release an album unless we find a band to do a split album. Yeah, so we are actually looking for, I'm talking to some other also girl bands to see if we can do a split album. The reason why is that it's just, I think over the past years, I think a lot of friends or even with my other project, it's very difficult to sell album. So
yeah. Oh, I agree 100%. This is not the time to release albums at all. What I've noticed is what does well in this world, in the social media world, is singles, right? One single at a time.
I mean, it's also easier for us, you know, so we don't need to invest too much. So I think, that's what we are planning, more like releasing videos and stuff like that. Yeah.
All right, Yan, thank you so much for this almost hour and 20-minute conversation about your life, about life in Hong Kong, about the experiences you've had and how you found your way to punk rock and hardcore and how it's changed your life and how you're giving back to the community you live in now. As a way to wrap up this interview, is there any last words that you want to share with the audience?
I think over this interview, I have been saying like it's so hard to be lonely, and it's so hard to be all by yourself without other people sharing the same passion. I mean, like with everything happening in Hong Kong now, everyone have their own belief. I think just stick to it, and you will definitely find the people you belong with.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yan.
Yes.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That was our 4th episode. We are so happy you've been enjoying all of these. Please continue to subscribe to us. Please follow us on all our social media. Please make sure you're letting other people know about these podcasts. They're not easy to do. It takes a lot of time, both on my part and Nicco's part as he edits all the videos. Both of us have full-time jobs. I'm a dad. I play in a band. There's a lot that's going on. And all we ask for you guys is if you're enjoying this, spread the word. Let people know about this so that our audience can continue to grow. And so that the people that we interview and the bands that we introduce and share, the news that we share, can reach out to more people. And so more people can hear about what we've got going on in this great continent of ours. All right. See you next episode. Look at what we've been through. Look at what we've been through.